Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. AFC Ajax are a team that find themselves in a strange position. They are widely accepted as a major European club with 33 Eredivises, 18 KNVB Cups domestically, in addition to 4 Champions Leagues or European Cups, a UEFA Cup, 2 Super Cups, and a European Cup Winners' Cup, amongst others. In their glory days, they swept up the Eredivisie and competed in Europe on a regular basis. However, in recent times they have struggled both domestically as well as on the continent. In fact, they haven't even won the league since 13-14. That is, until this season. Under Erik Ten Hag, Ajax have begun the path back to their glory days and are currently joint top of the Eredivisie and have just recently qualified for the Champions League semi-finals for the first time in decades. In this video, we'll take a look at the rise and fall and rise again of AFC Ajax. But just before we get into it, if you're new around here, like, subscribe and share the video as we try to grow the channel. We worked really hard on this one, so would appreciate it. Tweet in video suggestions to @FootballMadeSim. Now, let's get into it. Ajax is one of the biggest clubs in the Netherlands, and one name is synonymous with the club: Johan Cruyff. But to go to the roots of Ajax's footballing philosophy, we have to look at the two preceding characters. The first of which is Jack Reynolds. He was a visionary at the time, with his focus on skill on the ball rather than purely physical attributes not widely shared around Europe. As coach of Ajax, he also shared his desire to make this system, where the ball is valued, to be the ruling principle from the youth team to the first team. Sounds familiar, right? Well, this philosophy was continued by Reynolds, a Dutch manager who made his debut for Ajax under Jack Reynolds. He continued the system that Reynolds had put into place. This culminated in 1971, when Ajax won the first of 3 consecutive European Cups, playing the positionally fluid style now known as total football. And it comes as no surprise that the star player in Mitchell's team was none other than Johan Cruyff, who undoubtedly embodied total football. Johan Cruyff went on to be the Ajax and Barcelona manager after playing for both clubs. As a disciple of Mitchell's, he made a slight modification from a 4-3-3 to his preferred 3-4-3. However, he maintained what had now become the ethos of the club: total football. He also continued the tradition of bringing through youth players from the academy, which is now ingrained in the club. In total, in the Eredivisie, he gave debuts to 18 players in just 3 years. Although his Ajax were not the most successful, they laid down the foundation for a successful period where Louis van Gaal built on the football foundations Cruyff had laid. Van Gaal subsequently led Ajax to the Champions League in 1995, their last major European trophy, in an unbeaten season in both the league and Europe. This team consisted of former academy players Van der Sar, Rijkaard, Seedorf, De Boer and Edgar Davids. But after this trophy, there's a bit of a dark period for Ajax. In the following 24 years, they only went on to win the Eredivisie 7 times, an unacceptable ratio for Ajax. From 2001 to 2009, they only won the league twice and qualified sporadically for Europe. Their fans were livid and there was unrest within the club. In stepped Johan Cruyff to rescue the Dutch club once again with Plan Cruyff. In 2012, former player Overmars became the technical director. Former player Edwin van der Sar became the marketing director and later CEO. Former player Frank de Boer became the first team manager, and former player Dennis Bergkamp became a youth team coach. Picking up a pattern? Well, in 2010, Cruyff had begun to criticize the club for losing their way. One of the first things he suggested is that the club should be run mainly by former players, and these appointments came about as a result. Backed by Cruyff, Overmars was a key figure in Plan Cruyff, and his job was dealing with the transfer policy as well with the academy and scouting network. The next phase of Plan Cruyff was to address the club's transfer policies. The club had begun to change their transfer policy over time, buying more players and giving them game time over their own academy players. Overmars' job was to help reinvigorate the academy back to its glory days. They began to turn back to the Toekomst, their academy whose name translates to the future, in order to look for the future of the first team. Every one of the 13 teams from the under-7s to the first team train at this facility. Instead of buying players for the first team, Ajax decided to invest 10 million a year on the academy. The academy has an on-campus education for its players and a scouting radius of 60 kilometers from Amsterdam. This includes 8 professional scouts who lead 90 volunteers around the country in the search for the next great player. They've expanded their search beyond the Netherlands, forming a partnership with Guangzhou R&F to form the best academy in China. Similar deals have been agreed with clubs in New York, South Africa, Greece and Cyprus. All academies trained according to the Ajax principles laid out in Plan Cruyff. This includes using a 4-3-3 formation, pressing high and trying to win the ball within 3 seconds of losing it, and also playing passing football. Results are not important at their youth level, instead they concentrate on promoting these values. But before players are brought into the academy, they're scouted for months or even years before receiving the golden invite to the academy. They're scouted primarily based on 4 principles. Technique, which is skill on the ball. Insight, which equates to match intelligence and finding and understanding the spaces. Personality, which is bravery on the ball and personal traits such as aggression and passion. Speed, which is speed of thought as well as speed of foot. Each player in the academy has a dossier or an Ajax passport where these traits are rated to monitor progress. Ajax have always combined academy players with shrewd young acquisitions from around the world, such as Sanchez, Suarez and Ibrahimovic. At this time of the revolution from 2010 to 2016, Frank de Boer was promoted from assistant of the 2010 World Cup finalists Netherlands to become Ajax manager. He won 4 league titles in 6 years, an impressive feat, but Ajax wanted more. They wanted to be back on the world stage in Europe. After finishing second twice in a row, de Boer left for Inter Milan. The fans were beginning to apply pressure, demanding a change in transfer policy and bringing in some big money players. During this period, Ajax had had a net income of over £86 million. The pressure from the fans grew so intense, Overmars was basically forced to buy Hakim Ziyech from FC Twente. At the same time, Peter Bosz, who had been successful with youth at Vitesse Arnhem and with Maccabi Tel Aviv, became the manager. He lost in Champions League qualifying, but he rallied his team to become the youngest Europa League finalists in history. This team blended academy prospects, shrewd acquisitions, and big money signings, and only lost to Jose Mourinho's Manchester United. But again, their lack of financial power showed, as Bosz was bought out and joined Borussia Dortmund. Marcel Kaiser was promoted as manager from the youth team and produced great league results, but did not meet the club's goal of making them a force in Europe again, as he lost in the Champions League and Europa League qualifiers. After losing a cup match on penalties, he was sacked. In stepped Erik Ten Hag. Ten Hag previously worked at Bayern Munich too under Guardiola, and his influence is visible, but Ten Hag also found success at FC Utrecht, leading them to 5th and 4th before joining Ajax in 2017. Under the new transfer policy, Ten Hag was able to bring in some experienced players such as Dusan Tadic and the returning Daley Blind to join one of the youngest teams in the Champions League with an average age of just 24 years and 202 days. But what tactics has Ten Hag used to elevate Ajax? A match review is linked in the cards, but let's have a look at his general philosophy. Ten Hag was able to mold the squad's mix of youth and experience to create a deadly side. He has shown his tactical versatility, having previously used a 4-4-2 diamond and a 3-5-2 with FC Utrecht. And with Ajax, just as Van Gaal was brave enough to tweak Cruyff's system, Ten Hag strayed slightly from the 4-3-3. Instead, he opts to set up primarily in a 4-2-3-1, which can mold into a 4-4-2 with Van der Beek pushing high. When building up from the back, his fullbacks tend to move high up the pitch, whilst one of his midfielders, usually De Jong, drops into assist build-up play in combination with Daley Blind and De Ligt, who are both comfortable on the ball. His wingers tend to tuck in field, and in the Champions League he would opt to play Dusan Tadic as a false 9, whereas in the Eredivisie he opted for Kasper Dolberg. Ajax used quick transition, getting the ball from back to front quickly through controlled passes, which helped them to keep hold of possession. If gaps don't emerge, they are willing to hold on to possession in the opponent's half, but a combination of overlapping fullbacks and wingers coming central create gaps in the half spaces which Ajax use. In defense, due to committing numbers in offense, there are gaps to be exploited, and they can be vulnerable in the wide areas on counterattacks. This has led them to scoring many, 102 in the Eredivisie, as well as conceding quite a few, especially in the Champions League. However, they try to press high as often as possible to win the ball, a style favoured by Cruyff. As he said, on average players spend only 3 minutes on the ball, so the important thing is what you do in those other 87 minutes. Ten Hag's men have brought back Total Football 2.0, but unfortunately due to their lack of financial power, their team might be ripped apart. Rumours of clubs interested in De Ligt, Ziyech, amongst others are growing, with De Jong already confirmed to Barcelona for up to 86 million euros. To put that in perspective, Ajax's yearly budget is 100 million euros. They can't compete with the likes of the Premier League, whose one-year TV deal at 1.5 billion is more than the current 10-year Eredivisie deal of 1 billion. But Ajax are always prepared for when they lose talent, with another young star from the Toekomst ready to step up. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share it as I worked really hard on it. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this style of video as opposed to just the tactical reviews. But if you do enjoy tactical reviews, make sure you check out our breakdown of Ajax versus Juventus amongst others. And remember, keep it simple.